Hey everybody, Dave here from Dave Tries to Fix Stuff, the channel dedicated to the repair, restoration, and resurrection of broken stuff. And in this episode, I'm going to take you through what I did to clean up and partially restore this Epiphone Electar Tube 10 amplifier. In addition to that, I also did a couple of minor tweaks to the circuit to improve the tone. So if you want to see what I did with it, stick around and I'll show you. So before we get started, I want to ask you to go ahead and please click subscribe and also the notification button, the little bell icon, because I'm going to try and get these videos going again here in the near future. And you should be on board for all that because we have good times when we do it. All right, so what we have here is an Epiphone Electar Tube 10 amplifier. It's supposed to be 10 watts, single-ended. Old school look. Picked this thing up at a pawn shop when I was doing a little bit of traveling. Stopped by a pawn shop in Utah, and this guy was for sale. I think the guy had it marked at like 150. Talked him down to $100 out the door, only because of the fact that, I mean, first of all, I think it looks cool. The front of this has that old school look, which I think looks really cool. And plus, I heard that I read that these are fairly popular amplifiers, and I figured for $100, I mean, it needs to be cleaned up real good, and there's some things that need to be done to it, which I'll get into in just a second. But I figured if I got it all cleaned up, it worked fine, and if I got it all cleaned up, I could probably still turn around and sell it for $150. So I figured I could make my money back without too much of a problem. But there are some things that need to be done on it. I mean, first off, you can kind of see here, it's got a lot of rust on the hardware here on all these pieces. I mean, really rusty. I don't know if this thing got left outside or what, but it's definitely seen some better days here. It sounds okay. It's not so much my cup of tea, but it does sound good. It's got I guess I would call it maybe a bluesy sound to it. It's got a decent clean tone, and I think if you're a clean player, this would probably be a good guitar amplifier for you. And the thing is, I've heard these used as harp amps for harmonica, and when you do crank all these things and crank the gain on it, it actually sounds really good for harmonica. But since I don't really play harmonica, it's something I was thinking I was going to try to maybe mod this a little bit. To change the tone up a little bit so that I could have it be a little more towards my style of playing. So that's the things I'm going to do here. Is I'm going to clean it up, definitely try to I might have to source some new hardware for it. I'll see if I mean, I've got a lot of different pieces of hardware. I might be able to find something through my different stashes and all that, and replace a lot of this stuff. But definitely get it cleaned up, and then we will also take a listen to it and see if there's some things we want to do to the circuit to maybe make it a little more playable for my style of music. So, you know, something else I wanted to say about this. In fact, let's go ahead and go through everything a little more closely here. So, you've got the power switch here, standby, pilot light. You've got your tone stack, volume gain, and an input. On the back, you've got your fuse here, place for your plug. It's a choice between, I guess that's 120 and 220, so, or 240. So if you're Europe or whatever, you change that over. External speaker output with a 4 ohm impedance. And then, like I said, you've got your cage here that houses a 12AX7 and a 6L6. Now this 6L6, you're thinking if it's a 10 watt tube amp, this thing should have a decent amount of volume to it, and it really doesn't. It's not very loud. In fact, I've heard a lot of like champs that are louder. I've heard Epiphone Valve Juniors that are louder. They just give a little bit more volume on this, and I don't know if it's because it's got a really small, inefficient speaker or if it's because I really don't know why. So that's one of the other things I'm going to be looking at on this thing as well, is along with the tone, is the actual volume, to see. I don't know if I have to rebias the power tube, or if it could be the fact that the tone stack is maybe sucking some of the gain out of the circuit. Only having one 812 AX7, if it was just a volume and like a regular, you know, passive tone control, like a Tweed style tone control, I could see no problem having plenty of the signal getting to the power amp. But when you've got a full tone stack here, if it's like a traditional tone stack, there's more likely that there's going to be some of that gain is kind of sucked out of it. So that might be part of the reason why. So we'll have to check all that out when we get in there. And another thing I noticed too is that this guy's got a little crack in it here, so I'm gonna have to see if I can get that glued back together. But in fact, I think what I'll do now is I'll actually get a guitar and plug into this and let you hear what it sounds like. Okay, so I've got my my little Squire Bullet Telecaster, because like I said, this thing has a tendency to be a little flabby, so I've got the least flabby guitar as far as pickups that I could find. See, so for a clean tone, it actually has a really nice little tone there. When you kind of push it, it definitely starts to fizz out. And then let me turn the gain up a bit. See, I mean, I don't know how well the camera picks it up as far as tone, but it is definitely got some fizz going on there. There's certain tones in this where it actually doesn't sound bad at all. Certain aspects to it, and certain frequencies, certain places on the neck where it really doesn't sound bad at all. But you know, I want it to sound better all around. So we'll look at it. We'll see what we can find, what we can do to make it tighten up the bottom end a little bit. So I'll be right back. So here we've got a 6L6 WGC made by Sovtech. It's not bad. And then, God, look at all this. This is definitely seen cleaner days, that's for sure. There's a lot of little cobwebs and crap like that on here. This is definitely going to have to be looked at. Oh, and also, look at that. Preamp out. So this thing can service another. And this is a, wow. This is a Philips ECG, Joint Army Navy 12AX7 WA. That is actually probably a fairly uh, 87. It's probably a fairly valuable preamp tube. Interesting. Some fairly long plates in there too. So that's nice. Be careful with those guys. Okay. This thing's got cobwebs everywhere. You know, as far as build quality, this doesn't look too bad. But we've got, starting over here, We've got our power power transformer in here. Power coming in from right here, going through the fuse, then off to the switch, then into the power transformer. Yeah, this really doesn't look too bad at all. Got a fairly small output transformer, to be honest with you. I'm surprised for what's supposed to be a 10-watt amplifier. This is fairly small right here. I would have expected something a little bit beefier than that. You know what will help us? Let me get my iPad and see if I can find a schematic for this. Okay, so I found a schematic here for this thing, and yeah, as you can see, it's 12AX7 and the 6L6. They're not giving any indication as far as what the size of the transformer is, like what's the impedance on it. So we may have to go through, I don't know what we're going to do with that. We'll see. Yeah, we may not even have to mess with it. But looking at this thing, this is kind of hard to read, but a couple of things I can see on this thing already. First of all, this thing being biased with a 3.3K resistor, I'm thinking we can probably lower that value to 1.5K, first of all, and that will help to increase the gain a bit. Might take away just a little bit of the actual overdrive, the actual distortion, which may not be a bad thing, but it will increase the gain, which will in turn increase the volume a little bit. We may want to look at the side. Actually, both of these here. This one's a 1K on that. That actually might be fine. I might change that too. We'll see. But both of these bypass capacitors here might be a little bit big for the circuit as far as with what I want to try to do with it. That's going to be actually giving it a lot of mid to bottom end in there. So I will probably definitely lower this one. I mean, I'm going to want some bypass cap in there. Lower this one, and then I might eliminate that one. Lower or eliminate that one. I don't know. We'll see. I'll try that one first and see what we get, and go from there. Another thing is that this one's a 0.47 microfarad coupling cap. That is going to allow a lot of bass frequencies to go through as well. That I will probably change to maybe like a 0.02 microfarad and see what that gets me. This ground reference right here, this 330K ground reference, that I will probably outright remove. That's going to be probably the single greatest factor in this entire thing that's keeping a lot of the signal from making its way through, is that ground reference. So I think if I remove that, that's going to allow a lot more of the signal to pass through and get to the power amp. If I need to attenuate this right here, this resistor right here, I can probably up the value of that a little bit and see. From there, yeah, we're getting into the tone stack here. 0.1. I will possibly jumper that because we've already got all of these capacitors here that are shaping the tone and also performing the task of keeping DC power from making its way to the grid of the power tube. So that's really not necessary, and that might be one of the reasons why it's curbing some of the frequencies, so that might be changed out. And then over here on the power tube, we're going to look at, that's a 470 ohm resistor, 5-watt resistor for biasing the power tube. That's something that we might actually look at lowering that value just a touch to see if we can get a little more volume out of this. And that 22, I might increase that, even though I know when you increase the bypass capacitor on a power tube like this, that it has a tendency to kind of maybe tighten bass frequencies up a little bit. So that's definitely something we're going to look at. And then we've got this negative feedback coming back into here. That might be something I remove, or maybe not. I don't know. I might mess around with the value on that at lift at the very least. Or maybe I'll put it on a switch, or I could also put maybe a 22K pot there in place of that, so that we have a variable negative feedback. I don't know. That would be the last thing I do if of all these things. So, yeah, well, let's play around with that and see what that gets us, and we'll go from there. All right, so here's where I am right now. I've been sitting here picking at this glue. These are some plastic standoffs that this thing is holding up on. I've been trying to pick this glue off of here so I could get these. The ends of these are like the little tabs that have like a point at them, but they spring in, so they're barbed. So when the thing goes on them, they go up and then click back in and lock that thing into place. Trying to get the glue off of there so I can actually squeeze these, pliers over them and get them done. It's just not happening. That's he turned into a huge pain in the butt. So I have some metal standoffs here. I'm just going to cut these standoffs out, and I'll mount these in there and just have metal standoffs from here on out. But be aware, if you do work on these things, that's a problem you're going to run into. So you'll probably want to get some standoffs just so you can get the board out. Okay, so I actually lowered the resistor value for the power tube down to about 440 ohms, and that's making it dissipate at about 90%, which admittedly is a little high, but you probably usually want to get around 70%. But I'm liking the tone a little bit better now, so I'm actually going to be keeping it at that amount for right now. If it ends up burning up a tube, then so be it. I'll come back and visit it in a bit and see if I can, if I need to adjust it in some way. Bend those down a little bit though, so that I can kind of get out of the way. Aside from that, I actually pulled the coupling cap going between the first and second stages, and I have it hooked up to this decade box right here. And I'm going to kind of go through a few different capacitor values and see what sounds the best. I was going through my test speaker a little bit earlier, but I figured that's a big 12-inch speaker, and this thing's just an 8-inch speaker, and I should probably start voicing it to this. The other thing is that right now it's not going to give me a completely accurate idea of what it's going to sound like, because of the fact that there's normally a back on this, and it's actually like a closed back speaker box. But it'll give me a better idea than what would be going through that. So let's go ahead and turn this up a bit. Give it a little bit of gain. Let's start out, we'll start it off on the value that I had in there, which was, well, the first value I had in there, I don't even have a high enough setting on this decade box to have it even remotely accurately emulate that. The one that I changed it to was 0.02, which is this one, and it's got it sounds better than it did with the stock one, but it's still a little bit flabby on the bottom end. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to start looking at a couple other ones here. That's 0.01. that sounds, I think that sounds the best. And that is a .0, basically a 100 picofarad, 0.001 microfarad capacitor. So I think that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to pull a 0.001 picofarad, or microfarad, I'm sorry, from my stash, put that in there, and I think that should be good as far as the tone on this. I'm liking that a lot more. So I just hooked it up to my test speaker. Yeah, this thing sounds way better now. So I'm going to go ahead and get that capacitor put in there, and the tone adjustment section of this is now done, and I can get on to cleaning up the cabinet. Okay, so I got everything taken apart on this guy right here. It's still on there, isn't it? Get the badge there. That's off. You can see this thing's pretty nasty, filthy, dirty. So this is going to require good cleaning. Most of the hardware here, the screws and all that, are really badly rusted. I'm going to get some rust remover and see if I can get that off. More than likely I'll have to source that, because usually when you use rust remover on stuff that's like nickel plated, or plated like this, it ends up eating through all that plating, and you could like end up having black hardware, which maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll go with black, who knows, we'll see. But this thing needs to be fixed right here. You can see it's got this crack right there. I'm gonna have to get some super glue or something in there to try to fix that a little bit, as well as getting that cleaned out. Clean off the grill cloth, get all this cleaned off, everything cleaned up real good. Get some repairs going on these little places where the Tolex is coming back. I'll get all that squared away. But right now it's just time to do a bunch of cleaning. All right, so I've cleaned it up, the cabinet, with some regular like dish soap and water, and then I actually came back and used some mean green to try to get some of the stuff off. And there's still some places, like you can see, like right along here, that still have some spots that just don't really want to come off. So, and also there's a lot of places on here where there's little bits that are bad. That's when I come in with the Sharpie, and I color those in, and just do that, and it pretty much makes them go away for the most part. So that's a trick there you can learn. And then you've got little spots like this one right here where there's not a piece. I mean, some of this, like here, I have a piece that I'll be able to glue back down. This right here, I can glue that back down to get that down, but pieces like this or this right here, these are not going to be disappearing by gluing anything back down. So if I go over those with Sharpie, then I can get those to disappear too. So that's a good trick. Or if it's, something like this where it's not going to glue down either, you can kind of go down in there. And that just helps that stuff kind of disappear a little bit easier. I'm going to be going over the whole amplifier and getting all the little spots. So you can see all these little drain things. None of that came off with the by cleaning it. So And you want to make sure you wipe off excess so that it doesn't look like you've drawn on the side of it. And then once I do this, I'll go back over it with the mean green as well to try to help even everything out a little bit. But that's a trick for all that kind of stuff. All right, so the next thing I'm going to work on here is I'm going to try to fix the cracks in this thing. My original idea was I was just going to get some super glue to try to glue these things together, because I've got a crack here, and I actually put another crack in it when I was cleaning it right here. That right there and that right there. But I think what I'm going to do is I've got this two-part epoxy that I'm going to use, and stuff actually was leaking in the thing, so hopefully it's still good. But I'm going to mix up this two-part epoxy and fill in the two spots there with the epoxy in the hopes, because this thing is, the back of the thing is like a channel. It's like hollow. So there is a place for this to go. And it shouldn't interfere, as long as I don't put it on too thick. It shouldn't interfere with, ooh, this stuff stinks. So if I just kind of, where'd that crack go? There it is. Okay. So I'll take it and I'm going to put it in right here. Make sure I don't get it on the, there's that. And then I want to put it in right here. And again, I want to make sure that I'm not getting it on the back part of it, so it still will sit flat. So anywhere I might have dripped, I'm going to go back and just like squeegee it off. But hopefully once this thing sets, that should pretty much make that nice and strong, and we shouldn't have to worry about that remaining cracked. So I'm going to let that stuff set and cure, and we'll be back. Alright, so I tried something last night with the painting on this that obviously didn't turn out. You can see all the bubbles and stuff that are on here. What I did is I filmed it, but I didn't think I'm not going to include it on the thing because it didn't work out. I basically took a like a manila envelope filled with papers and stuff to give it a little bit of padding, and I sprayed a bunch of the spray paint on it, and then put this down into it like I was inking a stamp, and it didn't work out quite well. So the reason I wanted to do that was because normally this thing doesn't have this color on the side here. It's supposed to be the dark color, you know, that the plastic is, and then this silver is just on the face of it. But seeing how it's going to be really difficult to get that done, I'm just going to go ahead and sand this down a little bit. I'm just going to paint the whole thing the silver color, and then I'm also going to paint the heads of the screws and all that too. So we're going to do that next. Okay, so I got my son Alex here. He's going to go ahead and play a little bit on this thing so you can kind of get an idea of what it sounds like. this thing, and I think it turned out really well. Probably going to end up throwing this thing up on eBay or OfferUp or something and see what I can get for it. Thanks to my son Alex for playing guitar for me on this thing. This is definitely more of a noodler amp. You know, lots of like little flourishes and stuff like that. It's not really for my style of playing, so I can't highlight this type of amp very well. But so thanks to him for doing that. Other than that, I think this was a good success. For the amount I paid for it, I should hopefully be able to make a little bit of money off of this and move it along to somebody that can use it and appreciate it a lot more than I'll be able to. But other than that, I want to say thanks for watching me. Again, please click subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Dave Tries to Fix Stuff. Thanks for watching.